Hi, my name is Rachel McLeod. I'm a licensed clinical social worker and emotional wellness coach. And I help people do the brain work for resolving symptoms of anxiety, depression, and traumatic stress. I am not your talk therapist. I am not a talk therapist. I do some talking, as you have noticed. But really, what I'm really interested in is getting your brain to do the work that it needs to be able to do in order to create wellness and to create your wellness. And so brains can and do overcome symptoms of anxiety, depression, and traumatic stress, and they have a specific process for this. And so that's a lot of what I'm talking about all the time on my Facebook page, my YouTube channel, my email list is let's get your brain doing this process. And so that you can actually resolve symptoms. And I wish this wasn't such a very well kept secret. We're working on this over here. And really, where I'm standing here is I really want to empower you to be able to do your own healing work because there are so few of us in the field who actually know how to do this. And this is our skill set. There are many of us who are good at teaching people about this, but we can't, those aren't really that their skill set is not actually doing the work, getting on the streets and doing this. And that is my skill set. And I want to transfer that to you. And so I'm constantly going live to give you insights and direction and really help you get where you're going. And that's really my intention for today. And that's what I'm doing. So I'm going to talk about this. I'm going to put my little title of today's thing up here. Um, uh, the title to what we're going to talk about today is support and amplify one natural brain process to start getting rid of symptoms of anxiety, depression, and traumatic stress right now. Okay. Everything I do is about get results now. Get results now. Let's do it now. Let's get your brain to do it now because your brain can do this now. And brains resolve symptoms of anxiety, depression, and traumatic stress so quickly because it has the process that it has for resolving symptoms is an electrical process. And so imagine how fast electricity is running through our systems. And our body's communication is so highly electrical that imagine what a bit of brain work can do, right? That's a lot of electricity moving. So we can get results in seconds, in minutes. Once you know which process to support and amplify. And so that's why we're going to talk about this today. And I've written quite a bit about it. So I'm going to set this up over here and move this over here. I didn't realize that my new change today affected what I would do here, but okay. There is one process that I work with, one process that I teach people to work with. Now, obviously, there are multiple different ways to work with this process, and to put this process to work, we can get very skilled in joining with your brain, amplifying this, and say, hey, brain, what about this problem? Let's resolve it. And we can give your brain a tour of the problems we want resolved and hold the brain there and actually support it to do the work just by supporting and amplifying this one brain process. Okay. And I'm going to tell you what this one brain process is. And when I do, I don't want you to say, oh my gosh, that's so, it's not that cool. It's not this, what I'm going to share is not cool. It's just transformational. It's just incredibly powerful because this is where your brain will have the most problems. And not only that, I'm going to show you how you can see this one brain process and you can test for yourself and judge for yourself if your process is working or if it isn't. And if it's not working that well, you're going to want to jump in here and get that process up and running. Okay. And it's simple. We overlook this stuff all the time. Brains, when they're not impressed with stuff, they just throw it off and it actually starts filtering it out. You might have this going on so much and you don't give it a second thought because it's just normal. Your brain has already filtered it out and you want to talk about cooler things. And I get it. I want you to talk about cooler things, but let's give this one thing that we're going to talk about the power and time and attention it deserves, so that you can actually not just talk about cooler things, but start integrating much cooler things. And once this process doesn't start working in your brain, once it stops, nobody else stops. The world keeps moving. And so you kind of just skip over it and keep moving. And you don't know that you have passed over one of the most powerful pieces that you actually need for every single area of your life. If this process shuts down, you're going to have a really difficult time here. And that's what anxiety, depression, and traumatic stress are about. And they result from this process not resolving, not completing, not doing what it's supposed to be doing. So, this process, I'm gonna keep talking because once I say you might be out, who knows? This one process, um, my brain just left me. Oh, is so vital to our growth and expansion, and it's so easily supported. As a matter of fact, we have opportunities to support this all day long, every day, all day. And we don't usually choose the strategies that actually work for this. And so here we go. I want this up and running for you because when you can get this one going, you can start getting rid of symptoms right now. You're going to need to learn some things to help your brain. But this one it's just right here. It's so quick. Okay. The process that you want to support and amplify, the natural brain process, is your brain's natural ability to resolve stress, right? It's not super fancy. But stress is it's brain food. It's the same thing as actually physical food is to us. We use it and we take it apart and we digest it and then we make new muscles. We get rid of the old cells we don't want and we make new things that we do want. That's what your brain is doing with stress. And actually, stress is really good. There's a couple of books out recently about the benefits of stress. It's a truth. That is brain food. When your brain can digest stress properly, you will notice growth. You will notice expansion. You will notice the replacement of old programs. You will notice your brain once it can digest stress. All of a sudden, it's like we need this and we need this and we don't need. Let's stop doing that entirely. All of a sudden, all this growth takes place. Things that were difficult are no longer difficult. Right? Your brain's ability to manage stress is part of your ease and flow in life. And so your brain's ability to process stress is very, very important. What we are mostly trained to do as people is manage stress. We already assume and we are working under the assumption that our brain is already processing stress. So we're not even thinking about that. We're just like, manage stress. There's all this stress management stuff going on, and that is not the same thing as stress processing. And I'm going to even shift that language to talking about this in stress digesting. Can your brain digest stress? Okay, there's a couple of components to stress. Stress means it's out of your comfort zone. Stress means that there's something about it that takes it out of your comfort zone, which means there's something about it your brain isn't mastered yet, hasn't understood yet, hasn't mastered yet. Stress also brings up emotions. It brings up all kinds of emotions. It's not a negative emotion or a positive emotion. It brings up any emotions that come with it. They can be positive and negative. But because your nervous system is designed to very easily process the positive stuff that comes along with stress, and not so much get process the negative aspects, the negative emotions that come with stress. The negative emotions that come with stress can really shut down your brain's stress digestion process. And that means that the pain will come up. Your survival system's like, no, we get away from pain. And it will really shut down your healing process and push that stress, that negative information about the stress that's vital to your growth that needs to be digested. It will push it back down and it stays in your system because your system's like, I will deliver this information because it's yours. It's just like if you eat something, we want your stomach to be committed to digesting it, and we want your small intestine to be committed to digesting it. We don't want them to say, "I'm sorry, I'm not doing this. Get this out of here." Okay, now it's a thing, but it's really happening too much is really dysfunctional. And what happens in our systems with stress is there is no vomit button in your brain. We think there is. We think, oh, we'll just get rid of that. No. Once it goes in there, if it doesn't get processed, it stays in your brain stomach. and it starts expanding and it starts rotting and it starts causing dysfunction and malfunction all throughout your body. That's why people are talking about stress levels. The deal is that this is what stress, post-traumatic stress comes from. Post-traumatic stress comes from stress that was never resolved in the first place, and so it just circulates through your system, and it's causing harm. Your brain hasn't been able to move it through its process for resolving and processing and digesting stress, which results in it using in converting stress into usable forms, into forms that will make you stronger and healthier and smarter and wiser, and help you reach your goals and your dreams, and help you with deep connection and intimacy and all the things that help us to thrive and light us up, what we're here for. We're not here to walk around with backpacks of stress on us that can't be resolved, unresolvable stress. Our brain is not completing its process with stress, and so it's just carrying on the back of us. And so the thing with stress is that there's a really good healthy little line in here, and in this line, you have healthy levels of stress. Your brain is like, okay, yeah, we're doing this. Underneath it, brains get bored, right? And there's just not a lot of stress. There's not a lot of growth. There's not material for growth. That's okay. I think those are good resting points. And up here at the top, let me say something about it. I think these are also good stagnant points. So it really would depend on you. I don't typically have people in this area, so I'm really not an expert in what brains do when there's no stress or not enough stress. Um, I have not arrived to that part in my career, but what happens is that there's a layer above this, above, we call this the window of tolerance, right? If your stress levels are in here, they're in the window of tolerance. Therapists, especially therapists that do this type of healing work, we're working very hard to keep you in your window of tolerance so that we can get a lot of processing done. We can get a lot of healing, and we can get your brain resolving symptoms left and right. Like when you're in this spot, this is the sweet spot. Um, and this is a lot of where we go when we want personal development, when we're having, anyway, those sorts of things. But a lot of times when your brain is not doing its process of resolving stress, your stress is gathering up. It's not resolving, and you just learn to carry it on your backpack here, and it causes more stress. This is overwhelming, overloading stress, which then it is what it translates as us to us is overwhelming distress. And this is when we say overwhelming distress, what we're saying is your brain is overloaded with the stress. It cannot complete its process. And that's what stops your brain from completing processes is overwhelming distress. And it can just be in one moment, or it can be in multiple moments, and it can look like, you were managing stress fine, something happened, and now you're at a place where it's like a needle in a haystack. And no, that's not it. The straw that broke the camel's back, that's the one. And it gets on there, and it's like your brain can no longer cope with all the stuff that was unresolved. This happens a lot. High functioning people with anxiety, depression, and post-traumatic stress, this is what we'll see in them. They'll be rocking, rocking, rocking. Something will happen, and it's like the way they were managing stress is no longer doable. And now they're out here in the too much stress, not functioning, not processing well stress. This is when we're seeing people yelling at their family members, using lots of denial, because um, you got to use a lot of denial. If you're in your mental room and it's all filled with boxes, you have to stop seeing those boxes. You have to use denial. You have to start using strategies to dismiss it, to downplay it, to minimize it. You have to start using cognitive distortions to thrive. You're not thriving, but to survive. And so we don't want overwhelming distress. And we don't want unresolved stress. We want your brain working through one after another and after another. And that's why this process is so important to support and to amplify. Okay. And I want to say a couple more things so that you understand. Then we're going to talk about how you're going to do this. Um, okay. I'm just reviewing my notes here. Um, Yeah. So if you imagine the conveyor belt in your brain, I love this conveyor belt thing. I talk about it all the time because that's I'm sure there's a conveyor belt in your brain somewhere. It's moving everything through the brain's healing process, like a little factory. All the little parts of your brain do their little piece and keep it moving, right? Um, and so we got people that are loading it up. They're loading the stress onto the healing conveyor belt, right? And it's moving through. Um, and what happens here is that the good stuff goes through, and your survival system is over here, like, okay, it's checking things out. It's actually paying attention to your pain neurons. Your pain neurons are cool. Okay, we let this stuff go. Your pain neurons identify something on here and the lights start flashing. The pain neurons are like pain alert, pain alert. And so your survival system's like, we're in danger. And so it starts pushing off the pain stuff off the conveyor belt. Right. So now it's pushing stuff off and it's like, we got to get out of here. So it's using a fight, flight, freeze, faint, or fawn here. So I'm sure it's like taking a stick to it or pushing it, running, freezing, whatever state it's doing, it's actually shutting down this conveyor belt. And so nothing else it's not getting through and nothing works. Nothing's processing in that state. Once your survival system has responded to one of these things on here, it's over. The processing is over. We're in survival mode. We will process later when we don't need to survive. Our brains are not much different than they were in this way when we were tribal and there were tigers, right? You don't need to think about processing your food if you're going to be eaten. And your stomach, we'll process our food once we've outrun this tiger, right? So that's just what this is how this works. You don't get to argue with this. You don't get to wish it was different. You don't get to you can ignore it if you want to, but I'm telling you, let's get in here and amplify this process. Like we want the things on here to get processed. Enough with them because we don't get the pain out of them and we don't get them processed, we don't get the pain out. And every time it gets loaded, it will flag your neurons and it will over and over and over. This is why we have unresolved stress for decades. This is why people will go to their grave with childhood issues. It's because the childhood issues did not make it through the process. Now, probably all of us will at some point not resolve every single thing, right? But we want to see enough resolved that your brain tells us when enough is resolved. Your life tells us when enough is resolved. If you're seeing growth in your life, it means your brain's doing fine. It's like I'm growing. I'm doing my process. If you're adapting to stressors, if you're adapting in your life, okay, this happened. We had a loss, or we had COVID. We had there's a new child in our family. There's a new school we're going to, and you're adapting. These are signs this process is moving well, and this is good. This is exactly what we want to see. We want to see, are you gaining insights? Are you in problems that you're in and you're like, oh, I get it now? Are you seeing new things about yourself? Are you seeing new things about your relationship? That's this process. If your brain is processing stress, you're going to see insights. You're going to see that adaptability. You're going to see your growth. You're going to see maturity. You're going to see new solutions. Are you looking out for them? Or if you're not getting insights, are you confused? That confusion piece, that's because your brain is not processing stress. Your brain cannot get all the pieces it needs through the processor to create clarity, insight, and new solutions. That's just a very simple brain thing. If you got brain fog right now, that's coming from anxiety, depression, and traumatic stress, that's because this process isn't working. If you're parenting and your child has outgrown your past subconscious programming, right? And now they're dating now and you're not adapting well and you can't deal, that's because your brain is not processing stress. If your child is now walking and now they're all like, have all these opinions and they want things just so, and they want to do it themselves, and it's throwing you into a survival state and fight, you're arguing with your child, been there. That means your system is not processing stress. It's a very simple thing. We look at this stuff like it's so complicated. It's not. Your brain's not processing stress. There's stress in here. You can look down on it and say, "Oh, I shouldn't be stressed. You shouldn't be acting like this." You can do all that if you want to, but it doesn't change the fact that your brain is experiencing it as stress. Let's just process it. Let's not even think about it. Let's not even try to make sense of it because it hasn't made it through your sense maker. So there's no point in trying to make sense of something that actually hasn't even made it through the part of the brain that is actually going to create some sense out of it. It will stay senseless. You can't understand it. So don't. Just help your brains process for processing stress. It's really simple. You don't What makes this difficult is our prefrontal cortex, right? Its whole job is making sense of things. It doesn't care if it's not time. It's like, I'm going to run to the front of the line in the factory and I'm going to be down here and make sense of it. It hasn't made it through the process. What are you talking about? You're going to make sense of it. It's not even in the front of the brain. You think you're down there because you can think, but you're actually not down there. Okay, I'm ranting. I don't know if that makes sense to anybody else, but like, not all the things that go on in here are to be paid attention to. We shouldn't pay attention to all this stuff. This part of the brain is doing all the best it can with the information it has. And let me tell you, it does not have all the information ever. So we want to take that with a grain of salt. And what we can do instead to help it, we can really, one of the best partners to your thinking center, just by going over here and helping all this stuff get through the process so it has more things to think about. It has more pieces of the puzzle. But if this stress processing process is not completing, the stuff will not arrive there. And then you're going to see a deficiency in material. And that might not sound like a big alarm to you, but that's bad. You don't want this amazing creative center to not have enough information, because it's going to create stuff anyway, and it's going to be lopsided, and it's not going to have enough information. You're going to be like, but I thought it was the great idea. Yeah, you did think it was the right idea. Of course, your brain is yours, and it's going to submit stuff to you as if it's a great idea every single time. That's what it does. But if it's not getting all the information, you're not going to see the results. You're going to do the ideas. The outside world is going to give you feedback that you're off. Okay. And that's a great opportunity to say, okay, which is when the world gives you that opportunity to realize that you're off. That's stress. That's what stress is made of. Okay. You thought that it was this big, but really it's this big, and you just jumped and fell here. Okay. That's stress. Right. And then the stress of everyone watched you do it. And then the stress of, but everybody else is doing it. There's inherent stress in every single thing. Let's get it processed. That's really the whole deal here. Let's get it processed. Don't think too much into it. That's why I don't even like talking about this. I talk about this for you, but let me tell you what I want to do. I just want to process this stuff. That's all I want. But I'm going to keep talking here. Because I'm going to do this. There's one more thing I want to say about this, is that you'll know if your brain's stress process is working well if you're starting to get new solutions. Okay? If you're starting to see new ideas popping up and you're getting new solutions and they're getting better and better, that's another piece on here. But if you're getting new solutions, you're processing some stress. And but if you're doing the same thing over and over and over again and hoping for different results every time, that means your brain's not processing what's available. It's not eating, it's processing. It's not eating the food. It's not digesting it. And this is how we stay in cycles, right? This is when we have cycles with narcissistic individuals and we keep inviting them in and in and in. It's because our brain is actually not processing the stress that is involved with narcissism. If we keep running into the office bully, we keep changing jobs and we keep running into the same office bully, and we keep getting stuck right there with them, that's because our brain hasn't gone through its process of processing the stress. Because if it did, it would have new solutions and new ways of interacting with that bully. And pretty soon you will have outgrown the bully. You will have grown past them and you will be moving on. And then your brain will choose new challenges to encounter, because that's brains. It's annoying sometimes, but that's the truth. is that there's like, okay, we did that, and brain is like, I want more food. Let's go. And I'm sure brains have a certain level of hunger, we'll just say. Those are some signs that your brain is processing well, stress well, and utilizing the stress that's available in your life very well. And the other ones, if you're not growing, you're not adapting, you're not gaining the insights, you're not adapting to solutions, and or you've got symptoms of anxiety, depression, and traumatic stress. You're emotionally just recycling the same painful emotions. That means that your brain's not able to take those emotions and complete its process with them. It's that simple. It's really that simple. And so, if you understand this, and let me tell you right here, the deal is your brain only has a very small problem with this. It ends up being a very big issue, even a life threatening issue, and definitely a family destroying issue, and the perpetuating issue of generational trauma and generational cycles of awful. Okay, so it's a one small issue that turns into a really big problem for us. And that is that that pain response is shutting down the healing process. And that's really why we want to use specific interventions like emotional freedom techniques, thought field therapy, energy medicine, or EMDR. These interventions really help the brain process that pain, work through the pain, process it, actually desensitize it, take it from being intense pain every time we think about it to, oh, I can think about it and there's no pain. That's these interventions really help the brain do that. The brain has a process for that, that because of its instant response to jump away from pain is not able to utilize that. So when we use an intervention here or we engage the body, breathing can be really good. This is why we hug each other. This is why we pat each other. This is why we walk. This is why we're engaging the body in a very specific way to do our emotional work and to get our stress processed. Now, I like the four interventions I mentioned because they're really great at helping us reduce stress, but also resolving symptoms and helping our brain. It's like it's supporting the process, but it's also these interventions also amplify the process, and we want that. And if we've already got symptoms of anxiety, depression, and traumatic stress, we really want to be very specific and targeted, and we want to help the brain completely and thoroughly resolve those issues. And by when I say that, I mean, I don't just mean ending the symptoms, but I also mean that building in health and wellness. And that's a different specific process that really is contingent upon stress processing. And so, that's really what I want you to understand about stress processing. Um, and this is what else I want to tell you about this. This process is so powerful and important that this is the first part of my program, Inner World Transformation. This is the very first thing I do. Um, with any of my coaching clients, any of my therapy clients, anybody who enrolls in my self-study program, this is the first thing I do. I want to make sure your brain gets up and running processing stress. I don't care if it's a little bit of stress. I don't care if it's a lot of stress. I don't care. We are just going to process stress. That's what we're doing. Grab stress, process stress. And guess what? There's a minefield of stress in your life right now. There always is. And so we grab it and we push it through. And there's a specific strategy that I use that helps people map out their process, know which ones they're doing first, follow the trail, and then make it simple so that their brain doesn't just try and eat the whole thing at once. Let's process all the stress. No, we're breaking this down into itty bitty parts because this process doesn't work well. Otherwise, there wouldn't be all these symptoms of anxiety, depression, and traumatic stress. So really, we want to crank the stress processor process. That's what we do. The first part of the program, I give one simple strategy, and I'm like, let's get to work. And we are doing brain push-ups. We're going to be like, can you process that stress? Okay, 1, Mississippi. 2, that's it. That's what we're doing. We're doing stress processing. And we want your brain to get enough stress processing that 1, you get rid of symptoms, and 2, we want your brain to do enough processing that it starts to say, oh, this is how you do it. I remember this. And oh, but what about that fear? Oh, you can process that too. We want it to learn how to do this process again. We want to stretch its ability. Brains master things. If your brain does something enough times, it's going to build its own process for doing this. And right now, we're going to manually walk stress through your brain's healing process. We're just that's it. That's it. Because we want it to have successfully completed its process, and we want it to have the support to do it, and we want it to watch us doing it with it. Because as long as it's feeling it and interacting with this completion, now it's like, oh, that's how you complete this. And now it's making adjustments. You'll start watching your brain start to try to do it itself. And in the beginning, it's probably not going to be very good, which is why we're going to keep with it and we're going to keep helping it process. And we're going to do it enough times that one, you have cleared out a lot of stress in your life. So you have some breathing room because there's to resolve anxiety, depression, and or traumatic stress, we're going to need some space to get in and do some really deep work. And if there's all this stress in your life right now, you're already over the stress tolerance window. And so this first part is designed to get you in the window and also increase this your brain's ability to process stress, remind it how to process stress and get it moving. So you get so many benefits just by starting here. And with all of my clients, what I find is this part takes the least amount of skill. You can actually reduce your stress levels drastically. Um, and which then your brain is like, oh, that means we can get rid of this symptom. It starts resolving symptoms right away. This is what people tell me. Uh, this is when I'm talking about we resolve symptoms in a week, and I've shared that. I shared how one of my clients was had insomnia for 15 years, and in the first week we resolved that. I didn't know we were going to resolve that. My job is just help your brain resolve. We were coming for it. Yes, I was. I was coming for that, and we were going to resolve that. But I didn't know it would resolve in the first week, and it was just because their brain wasn't processing stress. I didn't know that. I had another client who would wake up in the morning and could not get out of bed until the pressure of her children coming home brought her out of bed, but she would lay in bed depressed the entire day. So when we started working with each other, I started her with stress processing. We want her brain processing stress. Let's go, brain. Let's go. First week, she comes back and is like, I'm making cookies. I can't believe it. I had energy. I was not depressed. Yeah, because depression is made from this process not completing. Your brain doesn't need to have depression in there. It like if we can get the process, the stress going, then you don't hit that overwhelm where your brain says, "Oh, whoa, throw the depression on top of that. We're not going to survive." And you start using depression as a survival strategy for very good reason. All this unresolved stress is overwhelming to your entire nervous system. Your brain might think, your thinking center might think this is nothing, but your nervous system is saying a whole nother thing. And unresolved stress is horrible, awful to your nervous system. And so the first thing we want to do is get this process up and running. And so, and I could go on story after story after story of what happens when your brain resolves this, resolves can really process stress, not just manage stress, but process it. Managing it is a part of the prefrontal cortex activity. It's great, do it, but really we want your brain to be able to work on its process for utilizing stress as it's intended to very powerfully, and because that's how we get rid of symptoms. And so that this is what I start everyone out with: stress processing. Very simple. This is what I start them with. And so I really want you to understand that how strong this is, how valuable this is, and this is likely, and because I teach people how to do this themselves, this is likely why I am able to help people overcome anxiety, depression, and traumatic stress in 2 to 6 months, where many other people have much slower results. It's because right here is where I start, and this is what I empower people to do. And so my clients can do this all day, every day with a very powerful tool. And so, and this leads me to something I want to tell you. This is so important to me that I am going to be doing workshops from now on. I'm going to be doing stress processing workshops. Okay, I'm going to call them fancier names because I know you're not impressed with that term. I wish you would be, but um, But I'm going to be doing stress processing workshops. And the first one I'm going to do is for moms. I'm going to start that one next week. If you want to enroll, I encourage you to go to my website and sign up now. I'm going to keep the spaces limited. And so it's just one 3-hour workshop, and we are going to work. I am not going to talk. I'm going to answer questions. I am going to give coaching. I am going to give support. I am going to show you how to do this. My goal is that by the time you're done, you will have resolved symptoms. Yes. You will reduce your stress levels. Yes. And you will have a great handle on working with specifically your brain's stress processing process. And that's the goal of these workshops that I'm going to be doing. And I've got 3 more lined up, 2 more lined up. You can see those coming soon on my website. But this is going to be exciting. This is a dilemma I've had because not everybody needs a whole program to resolve symptoms of anxiety, depression, and traumatic stress. If you've got a disorder, my whole 8-part process is really to help people overcome disorders and to overcome complex issues that are deeply rooted in this process not working that has become so complex. But 100% of people really would benefit from knowing how to help their brain process stress. It's just a life skill. It's just a life skill. You just need it because this is what brains use to grow. This is what great brains use to heal, to develop, to become mature, and not all of us can do this. This is what a lot of our blaming and shaming and our negative interactions with others or our yelling and lashing out has to do with our brain's processes not processing its own stress. So we're going to put it out on other people. And so I'm so excited about this because this will be giving more people an opportunity to build this one skill. And so I invite you to look into that. And if you're like, I just want to do the whole program, definitely book a call with me. Let's talk about it. Let's see if this is the right fit for you. I am happy to walk you through each step of the process. And yeah, there's options here. And the sooner we get to this, the sooner you resolve symptoms right now, which is really, really what I want for you. That's what I want for you. I want you to start resolving symptoms right now, this very moment. So, and the other piece of this is, um, let me tell you what I would have you do. The first stress processing workshop is for moms. I would encourage you, let's do this. Jump on, register, let's go. Um, and then the second thing I would have moms do who have registered, or maybe you're not going to believe me and register, is to watch my webinar. I break this down so you can see exactly what you need to do, how to use this brain function in even more detail, but practical, right? Because I want to get you a step closer to actually doing the work, because all this talk does not do it. This does not do it. Talking is fabulous, but this does not do the work. Just like talking about building a garden bed does not build your garden bed. Just like talking about getting in shape doesn't build your shape, doesn't build your muscles. Okay. I want you to get to work. And so the webinar is designed to get you closer to that so you can wrap your brain around what to do. And then, yeah, then the next thing to do, I would say, is get an intervention. And if you enroll in one of my coaching programs or the curriculum, I'm going to give you those right away. I mean, you're going to get training videos on how to do that, short, brief ones, because I want you to get to work. You just need basic skills. You don't need, you don't, I, and you don't need to do them perfectly. You don't need to become an expert in them. You just need basic skills. And so that's really what I do there. Um, so I would encourage all of you to watch the webinar. You're going to learn a lot from that. You're going to have a new perspective, and um, that's really powerful. So, and then the third thing I would have you do, let me see. I don't think I have a third. I didn't plan on saying any of this, but I didn't plan on being bossy right now. But really, what I would say is, let's get to work. Let's do one of these programs. I'm going to push my program here because, one, it's my site. I get to do that. It's my video. But two, I've watched it work with so many different people. And I know that it's specific, it's targeted, and it's strategic, and that's really, really beneficial. But whatever you do, whatever insight you got from this, take the action. Whatever you're going to do it, because you really can resolve symptoms now. You can get your stress processing process up and running, amplified, and healing. So, having said that, I'm going to get off now, and I'll talk to you all later. Take care. Bye.